Hello, my name is Catherine, and I'm 48 years old. On January 10, 2025, I died in a car crash in Richmond, Virginia. For years, I've been looking for the perfect church, the one place where I could finally feel like I belonged, and found the truth. You'd think I would know everything since I'm a hospital chaplain at the medical center here in Richmond. I mean, my job is to help people find peace and pray with them when they're scared or dying. But inside, I've been a mess, always wondering if I can really help anyone when I can't even help myself. It all began when I was a kid. In my family, going to Sunday Mass was not up for debate. Every week, my parents, John and Margaret, would sit in the same pew with their rosaries softly clicking in their hands. But when I went to college, I studied Byzantine theology and fell in love with how beautiful Eastern Orthodox Christianity is, the golden icons and the chants that made you feel like you were going to heaven right away. I changed religions because I thought I had found the truth. Then I met David, a Baptist minister who loved to preach and had a warm smile. I married him and joined his church to help his ministry, but I never really felt at home. The sermons were strong, but I missed the mystery, the incense, and the old prayers. But I didn't say anything because I wanted to be a good wife. I would sit in David's church and nod along, but my mind would drift to Orthodox liturgies or Catholic cathedrals. On Sundays, I started church shopping, going to different churches each week. One week I went to a Presbyterian service, and the next week I went to a Methodist service. I would tell myself that I was just looking around, but in reality, I was looking for the one place that had all the answers. I thought that if I could find the right denomination, I would finally know for sure that I was saved. I was scared that if I wasn't in the right church, I would lead patients astray in my work as a chaplain. My family had to pay for my restlessness. David was done. 3 years ago, he sat me down in the kitchen. His face looked tired and hard. "Catherine," he said, "going to different churches is tearing us apart. You can't promise to be a part of our church family or us." He divorced me because he thought my spiritual pride was the problem. Marie, our 19-year-old daughter, saw our marriage fall apart and decided that religion was the enemy. She didn't talk to me for months because she said, "Mom, you care more about finding the perfect church than you do about us." Peter, my 16-year-old son, now lives with David. He won't even look at me when I try to talk to him about faith. He says, "My obsession ruined our family." I think everyone has felt the pain of being blamed for something they didn't do. I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted to make sure I was on God's side. But the more I looked, the more alone I felt. My apartment became my hideout, full of books like Catholic catechisms, Orthodox prayer books, and Baptist commentaries. I would sit there at night, turning the pages, hoping that one of them would make sense of everything. Instead, I'd just stare at the walls and feel like I was letting everyone down. My kids, my patients, and even God. My job at the hospital didn't help. I would go into a patient's room, see how scared they were, and try to make them feel better. But I would be thinking, what if their religion is wrong? What if I say the wrong thing? I would pray with a Catholic patient and then with a Protestant patient, and each time I felt like a fraud. I remember sitting with Ellen, a woman who was dying, one night. She was a Methodist and held my hand tightly, asking if God really loved her. I told her yes, but inside I was freaking out. Did I really know? Was I taking her in the wrong direction? That night, I went home and cried because I felt like my doubts were drowning me. You might know what it's like to feel like you're not good enough and that you're letting everyone down. I would drive home from work and see churches with their glowing signs. I would wonder why I couldn't just pick one and stay. When I saw families leaving Sunday services together and laughing, it hit me hard that my family was broken and I was alone. After I left the Catholic Church, my parents stopped talking to me. They said I had betrayed them and that my spiritual pride had cost me my marriage and my kids. I began to think they were right. I kept a little notebook in my purse and wrote down my thoughts after each church visit. Lutheran service, too stiff. Pentecostal, too loud. Anglican, pretty. But is it real? I read it again, hoping it would help me find my way, but it just made me feel more lost. I couldn't stop looking because I was so scared of picking the wrong church and missing the truth. It felt like I was chasing a shadow that was always just out of reach. I was driving home from a Presbyterian church I had been to on January 10th, 2025. There was a thunderstorm going on, and it was late, around 9:45 p.m. The rain was so heavy that I could hardly see the road. I had been listening to a sermon about grace all night, but all I could think was, is this the right place? Is this what God wants? I was tired, and the rain and maybe a few tears made my eyes blurry. I just wanted to get home to my quiet apartment and the books that never gave me answers. That's when things took a turn. I didn't know it at the time, but that night would change me in a way I never thought possible. It wasn't just about finding the right church anymore. It was about finding something bigger, something I had been missing all along. That night, I was driving home with my windshield wipers hitting the rain. I thought the Presbyterian church I went to was another dead end. The people were nice, the sermon was good, but it didn't help with the pain in my chest. I was so tired, not just from the long day at the hospital, but from years of looking for the perfect church. I held on to the steering wheel with my hands, and my eyes hurt from the storm, and maybe from crying. It happened then. I didn't see the car that had stopped in front of me until it was too late because the road was slick. I swerved and my tires slipped, causing me to hydroplane across the highway. At the same time, everything was moving quickly and slowly. From the other direction, an 18-wheeler roared, its lights blinding me. I heard metal crunch, felt my car spin and roll, and then nothing. My heart raced with fear and excitement as the world turned upside down. I thought about my daughter Marie and my son Peter, and their faces came to mind. I said to myself, I'm not ready. I haven't made things right with them. I haven't found the truth. I was stuck in my car, with the world around me a blur of rain and pain. I was scared not just of dying, but of dying without knowing if I had gotten faith right. My head hurt, my chest felt crushed, and I was so scared. Did I let God down? Did I let my kids down? The pain was so bad that it hurt and burned, but then it stopped. Someone must have turned off a switch. The storm, the noise, and the fear all stopped. I felt light. It felt like I was floating in warm water, safe and light. I looked down and saw my car, which looked like a crushed soda can in the middle of the road. And there I was, inside it, with blood on my face and slumped over the wheel. It didn't make sense. I was here and there at the same time. Seeing my body like that, broken and still, made me feel sad. But the sadness didn't stay. I felt safe again when the warmth wrapped around me like a blanket on a cold night. The kind of peace I had been looking for my whole life. The kind I had hoped to find in every church I went to. I think everyone has wanted a moment when everything just feels right. I began to move, but not by walking. It was more like I was being pulled up. The world below faded away, the bent metal, the flashing lights of the ambulance, and the rain hitting the pavement. It felt like I was watching a movie that I wasn't in anymore. The sky above me opened up. It wasn't stormy. It was endless and glowing with a light that wasn't harsh but soft, like dawn breaking after a long night. It was like when I was a kid and saw Christmas lights and was amazed by something bigger than me. The air was warm and alive, and it smelled like fresh bread and spring flowers mixed together. I could hear something too. It wasn't music, but a hum that sounded like thousands of voices singing in perfect harmony. It was so beautiful that it made my heart ache. I was in a different place then. I was in a huge cathedral, but it wasn't like any church I'd ever been to before. The walls were tall and had Gothic arches like the Catholic cathedrals I grew up in. They led to golden Orthodox iconostases that glowed with divine light. There were simple wooden pews on the floor, like the ones in David's Baptist Church, and stained glass windows that sparkled with saints from every Christian tradition I had ever learned about. The styles didn't fight with each other. They worked well together, as if they were meant to be together. There was no ceiling above. Instead, there was an endless sky full of stars and that same warm, golden light that went on forever. I felt small, but not in a bad way. It was like I was where I belonged. You might know what it's like to walk into a place and feel at home, even if you've never been there before. That's how it felt. I didn't care about picking the right denomination anymore. I didn't have any worries. Then I saw him. I fell to my knees when Jesus stood in front of me. He wore robes that changed all the time. Sometimes they were white, like a Catholic pope's, sometimes gold like an Orthodox priest's, and sometimes black like a Baptist minister's. But it was always him, and his face never changed. It was so full of love that it hurt to look at. His eyes were sad, but they also had hope, as if he could see every mistake I had ever made and still love me. His hands, which were covered in glowing scars from the cross, reached out, and I felt like I could finally breathe. He said, "Catherine, my daughter," in a soft but strong voice, like a father comforting a scared child. "You've been looking for the perfect church building your whole life. Now let me show you my real church, the one that isn't based on denominations." I cried, not because I was sad, but because his love was too much for me. For years, I felt like I wasn't enough, like I wasn't Catholic enough, Orthodox enough, or Baptist enough. I was so scared of getting it wrong and letting my patients, my kids, and my God down. But when I stood there with Jesus looking at me, I felt like I was being seen, not judged, not weighed, just seen. I didn't feel like I had to hide, explain, or defend myself for the first time in my life. I fell to my knees and cried. "I'm sorry," I said through tears. "I tried so hard to find you, but all I did was make things worse. I hurt David, Marie, and Peter. I let them down." I was shaking as all the guilt and loneliness came out. I thought about what Marie said in anger, what Peter said in silence, and how disappointed my parents were. I thought about all the patients I had prayed with and wondered if I had led them astray because I didn't have the right answers. But Jesus knelt next to me and put his hand on my shoulder, which was warm and steady. He said, "Catherine, my love is bigger than your mistakes. You've been looking for me in buildings, but I've been with you the whole time. You know that feeling when someone loves you, even when you don't think you deserve it." That's how it was. It felt like I had come home after being lost for years. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay there forever, wrapped in that love. But Jesus smiled, and his eyes were bright with purpose. He pointed to the cathedral around us and said, "There's something I need to show you. It's about my church in America and what will happen if my kids don't listen." I stood up, still shaking, but ready to see what he wanted to show me. The light in the cathedral got brighter, and I felt like I was about to learn something I had been missing my whole life. I stood in that vast cathedral, the golden light wrapping around me like a warm hug, Jesus' words still echoing in my heart. "Catherine, my daughter, you have spent your life searching for the perfect church building, Now let me show you my true church, the one built on hearts, not denominations. His voice was so gentle, yet it carried a weight that made me feel like everything I'd ever chased was about to make sense. His eyes, full of love and a quiet sadness, looked right through me, and I didn't want to move. I wanted to stay right there, where I felt safe, where I didn't have to question if I was enough. Jesus gestured toward the cathedral, and the air shimmered like ripples on a lake. "Look, Catherine," he said, his voice soft but clear, like a friend who knows exactly what you need to hear. The walls of the cathedral faded, and I saw America, churches, homes, people, all connected by glowing threads of light. It was beautiful, like stars linked across a night sky. "These are my children," he said. "Catholics, Orthodox, Baptists, Presbyterians, every denomination. Their hearts burn with love for me, and that love is the same no matter what name they give their church." I saw a Catholic nun kneeling in prayer, her rosary beads glowing with light. I saw a Baptist preacher, his voice booming with passion, his heart radiating the same glow. An Orthodox family chanted in their icon-filled home, and a Methodist youth group sang around a campfire. Their light was identical, flowing from the same source. I felt a lump in my throat. All my life, I'd been so afraid of picking the wrong church, of missing the truth. But here, Jesus was showing me that the truth wasn't in the buildings or the labels. It was in the hearts of people who loved him. Maybe you know what it's like to spend so long searching for something, only to realize you've been looking in the wrong place. That's how I felt, standing there, seeing what Jesus saw. But then his face grew sad, and the vision shifted. The glowing threads started to fray. I saw churches turning away from each other, their lights dimming. A Catholic family shunned their son for joining a Protestant church. An Orthodox priest called other Christians lesser, his words cutting like knives. A Baptist pastor preached that Catholics weren't real believers. I saw congregations splitting over tiny differences, music styles, Bible translations, even how to pray. Pastors built walls around their churches, more focused on being right than being loving. Christians argued online, their words sharp and angry, while the world watched and turned away. "This is the disease of division," Jesus said, his voice heavy but still so kind. "My children are letting pride tear them apart. They fight over doctrines, forgetting that I am the truth. They build kingdoms for themselves, not for me." I felt my chest tighten. I'd been part of this, hadn't I? My church hopping, my obsession with finding the perfect denomination, it wasn't just about seeking truth. It was about wanting to be right, to prove I had the answers. I'd let that pride hurt David, Marie, Peter, even my parents. I'd push them away, chasing a truth I thought I could find in books or pews. I started to cry again, my knees weak. "I did this," I whispered. I let my search for the right church ruin my family. I was so afraid of being wrong, I forgot how to love them. Jesus stepped closer, his presence like a warm fire on a cold night. He placed his hand on my head, and I felt peace flood through me, washing away the guilt. "Catherine," he said, "I don't love you because you found the perfect church. I love you because you are mine. And I love all my children in every tradition just the same." He showed me more. The vision deepened, and I saw the root of the division. It was like a dark shadow creeping through churches, twisting hearts. "This is the enemy's work," Jesus said. "He uses pride to divide what I died to unite. Leaders cling to power. Believers find identity in being right instead of being loving. And churches compete instead of cooperate." I saw pastors preaching superiority, congregations shunning outsiders, and Christians more passionate about defending their traditions than sharing my love. It broke my heart. I thought of my own life, how I'd judged other denominations, how I'd questioned my patient's faith because it wasn't like mine. I'd been part of that shadow without even realizing it. But then Jesus smiled, and the vision brightened. "Look deeper," he said. I saw hope, like flowers pushing through cracked pavement. A Catholic nun and a Baptist minister served food to the homeless together, their laughter mixing in the air. Orthodox and Protestant families prayed side by side during a town flood, their hands clasped in unity. Young people from different churches sang worship songs under the stars, their voices blending into one. Denominational leaders met in secret, admitting their shared love for Christ. "This is my true church," Jesus said, "not a building or a doctrine, but hearts united in love for me and for each other." I felt my heart crack open. All those years, I'd been so afraid of picking the wrong church, of giving patients the wrong advice, of failing God. But Jesus was showing me that salvation wasn't about perfect theology. It was about a heart that loved him and loved others. I thought of Marie, who'd rejected faith because of my arguments with David. I thought of Peter, who blamed me for breaking our family. I thought of my parents, who felt I'd betrayed them by leaving the Catholic Church. "I hurt them," I said, tears streaming down my face. I was so busy trying to be right, I forgot how to be kind. Jesus' eyes softened, and he took my hands, his scars glowing with a light that felt like healing. "Catherine, your mistakes don't define you. My love does. You've been searching for me in rules and rituals, but I've been with you in every hospital room, every tear, every prayer. I'm with my children in every church, no matter what they call themselves." His words were like water on a dry soul. I felt lighter, like the weight of my doubts was lifting. For the first time, I understood that God's love wasn't tied to finding the right denomination. It was bigger, deeper, freer than that. Then Jesus showed me the future of Christians in America, and my breath caught. Two paths stretched out. In one, the division grew worse. Churches fought over details. Christians argued online, and the world dismissed them as hypocrites. Their light faded, and people turned away from faith altogether. In the other path, something beautiful happened. Denominational walls crumbled. Christians focused on their shared love for Jesus, not their differences. Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox, they worked together, prayed together, loved together. Their light grew so bright it drew others in, sparking a revival that spread across the country. "This is what I long for," Jesus said. "Unity, not uniformity. My children don't need to agree on everything. They need to love me and love each other." I didn't want to leave. Standing there, with Jesus' love wrapping around me, I felt whole for the first time. The cathedral, with its endless sky and glowing saints, felt like home. "Can I stay?" I asked, my voice small. "I don't want to go back to my doubts, my mistakes." Jesus looked at me, his eyes full of compassion but also purpose. "Catherine, my daughter, I have work for you. My children in America are blind to this division, suffering under pride they don't even see. They need to hear what I've shown you, that salvation is in me, not in being right. Tell them to stop fighting over denominations and start showing my love to the world." I shook my head, tears falling. "I'm not strong enough. I've failed so many times, my family, my patients. What if I get it wrong again?" Jesus smiled, his scars glowing brighter. "You don't need to be perfect, Catherine. You need to be faithful. I'll be with you, just as I'm with every heart that loves me. Tell them the truth. I don't have a favorite denomination. I have children in every tradition, and I long for them to be one." His words settled into me like seeds in soft soil. I felt a fire start in my chest, not fear, but purpose. I thought of Marie and Peter, of the patients I'd prayed with, of the churches I'd visited. I could go back, not to keep searching for the perfect church, but to share what I'd seen, that God's love was bigger than any denomination, and his heart was breaking for his divided children. I nodded, still crying, but ready. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll go." Jesus squeezed my hands. His love like a promise I could carry with me. The cathedral's light grew brighter, and I felt myself being pulled back, away from that perfect place, but with his words burning in my heart. The golden light from the cathedral faded, and I felt a jolt, like I was waking up from a dream. I was back all of a sudden, back in my body, and in a hospital bed at the medical center where I worked. The beeping of machines around me broke the quiet I had known with Jesus. My chest hurt, my head throbbed, and my arms felt heavy, like they weren't mine anymore. I blinked at the harsh fluorescent lights. They were so different from the soft glow of the sky. I wanted to cry, not because I was hurt, but because I was shocked to be here again, stuck in a body that felt too small for what I had just seen. I had been with Jesus, and his love had taken away all my doubts and fears. I was back in Richmond wearing a hospital gown, with bandages on my head and tubes in my arm. Sarah, one of my co-workers, hurried to my side. "Oh my gosh, Catherine, you're awake," she said, her eyes wide. "You've been gone for 4 days." We thought we had lost you. 4 days? After the crash, I was clinically dead for 9 minutes, but those minutes felt like forever. "Tell them, Catherine, I don't have a favorite denomination," Jesus said. His words were still burning in my heart. There are children from every tradition who love me. I lay there, looking at the ceiling and trying to remember the cathedral, his voice, and his eyes. My body hurt, but my soul felt lighter, like I had let go of something heavy. For years, I was afraid I would choose the wrong church and let my patients, my kids, and my God down. But Jesus had shown me the truth. Salvation wasn't about finding the right way to believe. It was about loving him and other people. I knew I had to change the way I lived, not just for myself, but also for Marie, Peter, David, and everyone else I met. I called Marie as soon as I could sit up and hold a phone. I shook my hands as I called. She hadn't talked to me in months, not since she yelled, "You care more about churches than us." You might know what it's like to call someone you've hurt and have your heart race because you're afraid they'll hang up. Her voice was cold when she picked up. "What, Mom?" I took a deep breath and said, "Marie, I'm very sorry. I was wrong. I was so focused on finding the right church that I forgot what was important, loving you, Dad, and God. I want to fix this." There was silence, and then a small cry. She whispered, "I thought you were gone." We talked for an hour, crying, laughing, and starting to put things back together. I didn't talk about different types of churches. I talked about how Jesus loved everyone and how that love was bigger than any church. Then I called Peter. I could hear the pain in his voice when he was with David. "Mom, why should I listen? You broke our family." It hurt, but I didn't say anything. I told Peter, "I messed up. I thought I had to go to the right church to be close to God, but I was wrong. Not being right is what keeps us together. God's love is what holds us together. I don't want to be just someone looking for answers. I want to be your mom again." He didn't say much, but he did say he would meet me for coffee when I got out of the hospital. It was a beginning. I also got in touch with David. We met in a park close to his church. The air was cool because it was fall. I looked at him, his tired eyes, the same ones I loved years ago, and said, "David, I'm sorry for putting my search before our family. I thought I was following God, but I was really following pride. I understand that now." He nodded, and his face got softer. "I also apologize, Catherine. I wasn't patient with you. We didn't fix everything that day, but we prayed together as two people who loved Jesus, not as Baptists or anything else. I didn't care about the right way to pray for the first time. I could feel his love between us. I also began to notice that my chaplain was working differently. Before, I was nervous about saying the wrong thing when I walked into a patient's room because I didn't know what their religion was. I saw them the way Jesus did now, as people, not labels. I sat with Elena, a Catholic woman who was worried about her surgery. Instead of thinking too much about her beliefs, I took her hand and told her, "God loves you just the way you are, Elena." I prayed with Tom, a Protestant man who was dying, and I didn't care if my words were in line with his church's style. I just told them about Jesus' love, which was the same love I had felt in that cathedral. Their eyes lit up, and I felt it too, that glowing thread that linked us all, no matter what church we went to. I began doing more than just praying. I saw how Christians in America were hurting each other, just like Jesus showed me. Catholics not talking to Protestants, Baptists judging Catholics, and churches splitting up because of pride. I couldn't keep quiet. I started hosting small groups at the hospital where people from different denominations could talk about their love for Jesus instead of theology. We'd sit in a circle and tell each other stories about our faith. There was a Lutheran nurse, a Pentecostal janitor, and a Catholic doctor. Linda, a Baptist woman, said one night, "I always thought my church was the only way. But when I hear you all, I see Jesus in each of you." I cried when I thought about that cathedral and Jesus' hope for unity. I also set up a night of prayer for the community in Richmond's Park. Catholics, Orthodox, and Protestants all came. But at first they were unsure and looked at each other's crosses or hymnals. But when we began to pray, our voices mixed together under the stars, and it felt like that cathedral again. A young Orthodox man and a young Methodist girl prayed for our city while holding hands. A Catholic couple who were older hugged a Baptist pastor they had fought with before. I stood there and felt Jesus' presence, as if he were saying, "This is my church." I believe everyone has experienced the yearning for connection, for a purpose that transcends our differences. I began speaking at churches not to promote a particular denomination, but to convey what Jesus revealed to me. God is indifferent to our labels. He cares about our hearts. He loves us and wants us to love each other. I told them about the two futures, one where pride tears us apart and one where unity brings us back to life. People listened. Some cried, and some weren't sure, but I could see hope in their eyes. I also taught pastors, and I told them to work together instead of against each other. Mark, a Presbyterian pastor, said, "Catherine, I used to think my church had it all figured out. I'm now working with a Catholic priest to help feed the homeless. It feels right. My parents were tougher. When I left the Catholic Church, they felt betrayed, and my divorce made things worse. I wrote them a letter, not to argue, but to tell them how I felt. Mom and Dad, I know I hurt you when I left your church. I was looking for the truth, but I missed love. Jesus showed me that he is with everyone who loves him, including you and me. I want us to be a family again." They called me, and their voices were shaky. We had dinner together, and for the first time in years, we didn't talk about our beliefs. We talked about love, faith, and Jesus. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I don't look for the perfect church anymore. I go to a small Methodist church near my apartment, not because it's right, but because it's home, a place where I can worship with other people who love Jesus. I still read my books, but I don't look for answers in them anymore. I see Jesus in the people around me, in their stories, their pain, and their hopes. I see him in the way Marie's smile gets slower when we talk now, in the way Peter is careful about being open, and in the way David forgives quietly. You might have felt lost, like you don't know where you belong. You might have judged someone for having a different opinion, or let pride get in the way of love. I did too. But Jesus showed me that his love is bigger than our differences, and that he is with every heart that looks for him. No matter what church we go to, he's watching us, guiding us, and loving us. Every day I'm trying to live that truth and show the world his love, not how right I am. And I think you can too. Start small by reaching out, listening, and loving someone who is different. That's where his church starts.